This is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, a guide to living a happier, wealthier, more successful life by, well, not giving a fuck about any of that. Everywhere you look, someone's trying to tell you how to be a better version of you, more productive, wealthy, and more fulfilled. And yet, most people are more anxious, overwhelmed, and miserable than ever. The truth is, they try too hard, and there's a better way, but it's not what you think. What if your problem is you don't have enough problems, that you're trying too hard, that you need to suffer and fail more, that you need to accept that you're not all that special, and that you will never be rich or famous? It's a hard truth. Most of what you chase probably won't make you happy. But by understanding the 9 unconventional ideas in this book, you can change that. You'll learn how to care less, do more, and do it in style. Or in other words, you'll learn
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
The best thing in the world is to get away from other people. It's glorious.
That is a quote from Charles Bukowski, one of the most renowned poets in the world. But believe it or not, he was also a perpetual drunk with a gambling habit who cheated in every relationship he had. Not your typical success story. Before he was famous, Bukowski worked as a file clerk at his local post office. He hated everything and everyone there. But when he wasn't working or drinking, Bukowski was writing poetry, and a lot of it. Bukowski sent his poetry to dozens of publishers, hoping one of them would offer to work with him. For years, the rejection letters kept piling on top of each other, until one day when an editor finally decided to take a chance on him. And with nothing to lose, Bukowski took a chance on himself. He channeled his hatred for his job and the people around him, and in just a few weeks, he churned out Post Office, his first novel, which he followed up with 5 more. Then came the poems, the hundreds and hundreds of poems that cemented his legendary place in American literature. Talented and successful as he was, though, you probably don't want to be like Charles Bukowski. He was miserable. He was mean. He was a bitter old man who resented everything and everyone. But to his credit, the way he lived his life contains some valuable truths.
Negativity is actually the path to positivity. Most people's assumption is they just want the positive experiences from life, but it's actually the tolerance and acceptance of the negative experience that leads to the positive experience.
Bukowski's life was a mess by most standards. He was miserable, self-destructive, and nobody who knew him actually liked him. But no matter what, he was honest, brutally, painfully honest, especially to himself. Most people are constantly performing. They try to be more productive, more likable, more happy, and it's exhausting. Bukowski never tried to become something that he knew in his heart he was not. He accepted his misery with open arms. He didn't chase status, popularity, or even happiness, and in a way, he achieved success not because it was his all-consuming obsession, but because he didn't actually try all that hard. This advice sounds completely backwards, even unhelpful, but when you take a deeper look, it makes total sense. Don't try doesn't mean do nothing. It means stop trying to be someone you're not. Stop forcing your way into a life that doesn't fit. Stop chasing dreams you picked up from someone else's Instagram. When you're focused on getting something you don't have, you're always keenly aware of the fact that you don't have it. That is what makes you unhappy and dissatisfied. You can't care about everything all the time, and trying to do so will only make you feel inadequate. The only trick to happiness is not to focus on it, to stop needing it so much. Bukowski believed in this principle so much that he made sure everyone who came across him knew it, even long after he was gone. Charles Bukowski is laid to rest in California under a tombstone with the inscription, "Don't try."
The point of life is not to feel good all the time. The point is to find something meaningful to do with your time. And if you optimize for meaning, then the happiness question will kind of take care of itself.
There's a legendary story about a king who determined that his firstborn son would live a life of absolute luxury, never knowing a moment's pain or struggle. He arranged for the prince to have servants waiting on him day and night. The prince was spoiled with lavish gifts, and any food he wanted was delivered to him at once. Quite predictably, the prince grew up completely oblivious to the pain and suffering taking place just beyond the palace walls. He had never felt it, but he understood that. In order to experience suffering, the prince ran away from his castle and started living on the streets. Like the peasants, he begged for food and exposed himself to the most uncomfortable elements, all in an effort to gain some enlightenment about suffering. This went on for some years. The prince found nobility in his suffering, but eventually he realized he wasn't learning anything. He was just suffering without any clear purpose or cause. So, as the story goes, the prince sat under a tree contemplating life until he came to this conclusion. Life itself is a form of suffering. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they have no family. People with a family suffer because of their family. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures. People who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of their abstention. This isn't just a fable, and this wasn't just any prince. It's the story of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who became known as the Buddha. Siddhartha was unhappy precisely because he was too happy. In his early life, he had no problem to which he could devote his time and attention, and ultimately find deep satisfaction from solving. His life was devoid of suffering, but because of that, it was also devoid of meaning. Most likely, you are not a royal heir with a staff of people devoted to eliminating your every hardship. You are also probably not going to give up a life of relative comfort in exchange for poverty. And you are definitely not the Buddha. But what you are is something even better. You, without a doubt, are a person with problems. The best thing about that is that you get to solve them. Life is full of problems. When you solve one, another seems to appear and demand your attention. It's a constant, never-ending cycle, but that's the beauty of it all. These problems are blessings in disguise. They constantly present you with ways to improve. They give you a chance to show up with courage, and annoying as they sometimes are, they give your life meaning. And that's a lot better than happiness. Identify the problems you enjoy solving and see yourself as a constant work in progress, always in search of better ways of living. Make a habit out of it, make a career out of it, and make a life out of it, and see where that takes you.
You are not special. You're not. Nobody is.
Everyone knows that one person who maintains a delusional level of self-confidence. They always believe they're better, smarter, and more important than everyone else. They are on a level others could only dream about, and simply put, in their mind, they are superior to everyone else. But on the other hand, everyone knows that one person who's the complete opposite. They believe that they are no good at all, that they're uniquely broken, beyond repair, with problems so complex nobody could even begin to understand, let alone help. They're destined for failure no matter what they do, so why even bother to try? What could these two types of people possibly have in common? Well, the answer is everything. In the end, the person with delusions of grandeur and the person with an inferiority complex are the same, because both of them fall into the trap. They believe they're special. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not like either of these people, so what does this have to do with me? Well, the answer is also everything. At different points in your life, you've likely been a version of both of these people. Sure, you might not be on the extreme ends of the spectrum, but it's likely you've fallen into the trap of either believing that you're perfect or perfectly flawed. At their core, however, both of these mentalities share a sense of entitlement. They require you to believe that you're fundamentally exceptional in some way. In reality, you're probably not the best, and likely not the worst either. You're somewhere in the middle, along with everyone else. It's called average, and it describes you perfectly. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. You'll go through the same problems and challenges as millions of other people. Heartbreak, rejection, failure, and disappointment. None of these negative experiences is unique to you. Even your successes and victories probably won't be any more noteworthy or spectacular than the next person's. Of course, this isn't to say that you shouldn't strive to be the best you can be, even if you have no real shot at ever becoming extraordinarily rich, famous, or successful. And after all, the only way to become truly great at something, a hobby, a job, a relationship, is to first acknowledge that you are lacking. Once you face the fact that you have room for improvement, you can begin to make progress. And if you're lucky, you'll find beauty in the ordinary.
The harsh truth of the day is that sometimes you need to suffer a certain amount to change and grow.
Biology, psychology, and common sense have taught us that the human brain is hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid suffering. It's in our very nature to seek out pleasant and advantageous conditions. This comes so naturally, you do it in ways you probably don't even think about. You never write that book because you're scared no one will read it. You avoid relationships because you don't want to get your heart broken. You never apply for that job because you're afraid of getting rejected. There's no logic to it. You know that there are plenty of other times in life when suffering makes sense. For example, the burning sensation from touching a hot stove lets you know that it's dangerous. The pain from a broken bone or injured muscles is your body's way of alerting you to a problem. Or the ache in your legs is only there because you're just about to cross the marathon finish line. But psychological or emotional pain? It's harder to find the meaning in it, but when you look, it's there. Depression is a signal that you're not living life correctly. Anxiety is a signal that you're unprepared for something. Humiliation, heartbreak, rejection, these are not pleasant experiences, but they are meaningful ones. And if you never let yourself experience suffering, then you also never let yourself find the greater purpose behind the pain. Suffering helps you recalibrate and focus on what really matters, what you really want out of life. You can start to understand suffering and what you're willing to endure by asking yourself this basic question: why? If you're seeking to be rich, why do you want money in the first place? If you want to go on a diet and lose weight, why are you unhappy with the way you currently look? If you're lonely and want to pursue a relationship, why do you feel inadequate alone? Once you know why you're willing to suffer and sacrifice, you'll have a much easier time achieving the outcome you want.
It doesn't matter how disciplined you are, it doesn't matter how motivated you are, it doesn't matter how strong you are, how intelligent you are, how much support you have. If you have the wrong goal, you're fucked.
The values you choose to suffer for are what's most important. Superficial and fleeting values like popularity, attention, and being accepted by others make poor goals. You can't control them. And worst of all, even if you achieve them, you'll realize they weren't ever worth all that much. But values that are worth suffering for, the ones that are worth staking your claim on, Think of honesty, justice, vulnerability, and standing up for what's right. These are the types of goals worth pursuing and suffering for. Not all pain is made equal, so choose yours wisely. On October 9, 2012, Malala Yousafzai was doing what every 17-year-old girl should be doing: going to school. Except for Malala, this was no easy task. In fact, it was illegal. You see, Malala lived in a region of Pakistan controlled by the Taliban. They restricted many freedoms, including girls' rights to a basic education. Ever since she was a little girl, Malala had been fighting for her right to go to school, and she only grew more passionate as she grew older and saw her chance at an education and her hopes and dreams slipping away. Malala was outraged, but more importantly than that, she was outspoken. She used her voice to bravely question authority and protest against the ban on girls' rights to receive an education. By the time she was a teenager, she had made a name for herself as an activist. Unfortunately though, the Taliban knew it. One day, while riding the bus from school, a member of the Taliban stopped them and asked, "Who is Malala?" When Malala identified herself, she was immediately shot in the head.
Terrorists thought that they would change my aims and stop my ambitions. But nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born.
Extraordinarily, Malala survived, but she did something even more impressive. She used her experience to inspire and educate countless others. She recognized that she was not to blame for her pain, but she was responsible for how she chose to use it. You've likely heard the phrase, "With great power comes great responsibility." When you flip just a few of the words around, you have an equally meaningful and powerful philosophy. With great responsibility comes great power. When you decide that you and you alone are responsible for your emotions, reactions, and feelings, you have the power. No matter what happens, you unlock a power that others who are stuck in a perpetual cycle of victimhood can't comprehend. Even when something outside of your control happens, you'll be able to choose how you respond to it. Think of it this way. If your relationship ends, you might not be to blame for the breakup, but you are responsible for managing your emotions and feelings about it. If you get laid off from your job, it might not be your fault, but you are responsible for rebuilding your career. This is how you should respond to most things in your life. You can't begin to make things better and improve your situation until you come to see yourself as responsible for it.
You are always choosing. Whether you realize it or not, there's no such thing as a situation where you are not choosing your struggle or not choosing your problem.
It's impossible to not choose something. Even the choice to not make a choice is still a choice. When you decide to take responsibility for a problem, you are choosing to be the one with the power to solve it.
When we feel as though our problems and our struggles are thrust upon us without our control, that's when we suffer. That's when we feel completely powerless.
You are not powerless. The choice is always yours to accept responsibility and stay in control of your own life. The question is, will you take it?
Everything we think is so true and important today is going to be absolutely ridiculous to us at some point. And that's actually a good thing.
Think about all of the dumb things people have believed over the course of history. The earth is flat, smoking is healthy, bloodletting was a cure for illness, babies are incapable of feeling pain. At one time, people even thought sheep grew from plants. Looking back, it seems silly that we ever believed those things in the first place. And if you're honest, you can probably think of hundreds, if not thousands of things you've been wrong about in your own life. Maybe as a kid, you thought your job would be a superhero, or growing up that you would marry your grade school girlfriend, go to your dream college, or become a millionaire before 30. As you age, your wrong beliefs about yourself become more serious, and realizing they aren't true becomes more painful. You end up getting fired from your dream job. Your health starts to fade, and you start to come to terms with the fact that you're not young anymore. Just when you thought you had it figured out, everything changes, and you have to begin all over again. You'll go through this cycle again and again for the rest of your life. But each time you do, consider it a privilege. Growth is an endlessly iterative process. When we learn something new, we don't go from wrong to right. Rather, we go from wrong to slightly less wrong. And when we learn something additional, we go from slightly less wrong to slightly less wrong than that, and then to even less wrong than that, and so on. We are always in the process of approaching truth and perfection without actually ever reaching truth or perfection. It's hard in the moment to realize that you don't have the answers. Yet one day, when you're older and wiser, you'll look back and laugh at the thought that you ever did, that you ever could have in the first place. Everybody wants to be right, but you just have to be less wrong than you were yesterday.
To assume that everybody's thinking about you as much as you're thinking about yourself is kind of low-key narcissism. Here's a harsh truth for you. Insecurity is your mind lying to you. It tells you that the world is gonna laugh, when in reality, nobody gives a shit. The truth is, everyone else is too busy thinking about themselves and worried about what other people are gonna think of them to even bother thinking about you. And this shouldn't be upsetting, it should actually be liberating.
There's a famous story about a time Pablo Picasso once went to a cafe in Spain. To pass the time, he doodled on a napkin. A woman nearby took notice of his drawing, which was incredible because, again, this was Pablo Picasso. After Picasso finished his meal, he crumpled up the napkin to throw it in the garbage. The woman suddenly shouted, "Wait, don't throw that drawing away. I like it so much, I'm willing to pay you for it." But when Picasso named his price, $20,000, the woman was confused. "How could that drawing be worth $20,000? I watched you create it in just a few minutes." Picasso replied, "No, it took me 60 years to create." And he was right. See, Picasso could only casually doodle a museum-worthy painting on a napkin with very little effort and then throw it away because before that moment, he went through decades and decades of failure. He only got it right because of the countless times he got it wrong before. Picasso wasn't born a great painter, he became one after years and years of endless practice and determination. So when you see someone who's better at something than you are, it's probably not because they have natural talent or an unfair advantage. The simplest explanation is likely that they've failed more times than you have. This is why you must see failure as the launchpad to success. Too many people are afraid to fail. They fear embarrassment or making a fool of themselves in front of others. But that's based on a faulty premise, mainly that anyone is even thinking about you at all. If you don't believe this, there's an easy way to test it for yourself. Think about all of your humiliating moments. You know, those ones that you can't stop replaying in your head over and over again. Those times when you said or did something so awkward you cringe at the very thought of it. It's embarrassing to even think about it, but now try to recall another person's most embarrassing moment. If you're struggling to think of even one, that's the point. See, you were too busy worrying about yourself to notice anyone else's shortcomings.
In psychology, there's something known as the spotlight effect. Now, the spotlight effect says that we all tend to assume that people are paying far more attention to us than they actually are.
You can't fear failure. and you certainly can't fear failure because you're afraid of what others may think. So go ahead, fail like no one's watching, because they probably aren't anyway.
If I choose one value to prioritize over everything else, that means by definition, I must be willing to reject other things. If I'm not willing to reject those things, then I'm not able to actually prioritize what's important in my life.
You've probably been believing a lie your whole life. It's the one that says rejection is always a bad thing and you should avoid it at all costs. It starts when you're young. The worst thing in the world is getting picked last on the playground. Then it's finding the courage to ask your crush on a date and hearing the dreaded, "I'm not interested." After that, it's applying for a job and being told, "Sorry, but we're going with someone else." The rejections pile up. Each one stings more than the last. So it makes sense to want to eliminate the chances of being rejected. But that's no way to live. Think about it. If you never heard no, how would you ever be able to truly appreciate a yes? This is because rejection is actually what gives you direction, or better yet, redirection. Finding better friends after your old ones let you down, meeting your soulmate after a devastating breakup with your romantic partner, landing your dream job after not being chosen for other opportunities. And the benefits of rejection go both ways. When you're told no, you understand the power of saying no. The act of choosing one thing over another forces you to think about your priorities. If you want to build meaningful relationships, you choose dinner with friends over working late. If you want to be healthy, you pick going to the gym when you'd rather sleep in. If you want better grades, you decide to study when going to a party sounds like much more fun. Your time and energy are limited. It would be impossible to focus on everything all at once, so you have to get used to saying no. When you reject one thing in favor of another, what you're really saying is, "This is the most important thing, and I'm going to treat it like it is." This gives you the freedom to commit to the things truly worth caring about. When you learn to reject alternatives, your attention will no longer be divided, and you won't feel like you're being pulled in competing directions. You'll have clarity, freedom, and a defined sense of purpose. It's a good idea to make friends with rejection. It's always got your best interest at heart.
One day, you and everyone you know will die. And beyond a small group of people for an extremely brief period of time, little you say or do will ever matter.
Nothing good lasts forever, and that includes life itself. Just when you think you have it all figured out, when you've finally arrived and you've found the answers you've been searching for, your time on Earth comes to an end. And although death is daunting and scary and downright unpleasant to think about, it is, at least, certain. Indeed, there is no certainty in life except for death. And if we're being honest, if life lasted forever, it would lose all meaning. So how should you live life knowing that it's going to end? Well, you could live as if nothing mattered. Or you could choose what's important and make it matter. Life and all its challenges and opportunities are valuable because they're fleeting and finite. So where does this leave you? You only have a limited amount of fucks to give, so care about the things worth caring about. Stop pretending, take responsibility, and don't be afraid to be wrong or to fail or to be an ordinary person with ordinary problems. But above all, don't take life too seriously, because no one makes it out alive anyway. This was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Hopefully you've started to identify the things in your life that are actually worth caring about. But now, how do you take this one step further and care with consistency? Well, just click the thumbnail on the screen right now to watch our video on Atomic Habits, one of the most life-changing books we've ever read. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.